Hi, and welcome back to Overtime Operators. You're here with Casey at Niners Fanman or Niners_Fanman on all your socials. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only Daps from Dap Sports. Follow him at Dap Sports just about everywhere you could ever follow anything. They do all kinds of crazy stuff over there, mostly breaking cards. So if you're into that kind of thing, jump on over there, check them out 24/7. They're always popping. Never know when to stop. They're going to never stop. But Daps, today we're talking about making money in sports. Sports betting is going to be the first block in our show. We're going to do our pick 5 bets. We each pick 5 bets that we're most confident in for the coming up week of sports. We do a $10 bet, $20 bet, $30 bet, $40 and $50 bets based on our confidence, how much we want to win. First, we got to wrap up last week's. Daps, do you know how you did last week already before I get into the results?
I just took a look, and I do know how I did last week.
Okay. So, Daps, I'll not bury the lead here. You are the champion of last week, but we both ended up positive. So we always like that as a show when we're in the black. I'll start with me here. I had as my $10 bet last week the Cards at Steelers. That one didn't pan out for me. I'm going to blame the Pickett injury. Looked like it could have been close. Could have scored a lot more. Oh, I had the over on 41 points, by the way. And big L for me there. So I lose $10. Going to my $20, Falcons at Jets. That one worked for me. I had the under 34 points, and I think they were way under on that one. That one I liked a lot. So I'm a little bit ahead there. Then Panthers at Bucks. I pull up short again, betting on the Bucks to cover the 5.5 point spread. I believe they won by 4, something like that. So disappointing. But that's how it works sometimes. Dolphins at Commanders saved me in my 40 spot because I had the Dolphins to cover 9.5 in their victory, which they did. Then my $50 was a complete flop. Chargers at Pats. 6-point spread. Chargers to win. They shut out the Pats and can't cover the spread. Daps, give me a minute on this situation. What is this? How could you be a professional football team, shut out a team, and not cover a 6-point spread? Can you tell me how that happens, please?
I wish I could. The Chargers are pathetic. The Patriots are pathetic. Listen, there was obviously weather conditions that might slow the game down, but not 6-0. And I grew up watching this style and this brand of football where it wasn't solely quarterback driven. There was a lot of those old school teams who ran the ball, a lot of punts. And I don't necessarily hate watching that type of football. A 17-10 game, 17-7. You know what? People love scoring, and I get it. I love it too. But what's cool about games like that is the last 2 minutes sometimes become very exciting in a 7-7 game, in a 10-7 game, in a 6-6 game, because a field goal wins it, right? So you don't necessarily need the points to have the drama. Now, you got none of this, though, with the Chargers and the Patriots. Herbert is – I didn't watch that game because every time I flipped to it, it looked horrendous. But the fact that you have Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, 2 top 5 position players, and you can't score a touchdown, like I don't know what's going on. I've hated that coach for a couple of years now, and I'm just going to blame him because he's my scapegoat for the Chargers. Very interesting to think, like, what if Bill Belichick went to the Chargers? What if Bill Belichick went to the Bengals, right? Like, I don't know. He might retire, but I could make the argument, like, or the comparison rather. Phil Jackson goes from Jordan to Kobe. Very similar path. Belichick, Brady to
That's
Herbert,
true.
in my opinion, because what you got to do is, as Belichick, run the same style defense you've been running for the last 30 years because you're the best at it, and then trust in Herbert on the offense. And that would be the game plan in my mind. That's the easiest way to set it up. But Patriots, Chargers, what a letdown for the NFL. Disaster of a game. I don't know who enjoyed watching that.
I agree. It was disgusting, and I thought the Chargers were better than that. The Pats we know are struggling. I do like this being the pass off of the Bill Belichick potentially in this game over to the Chargers. That fan base and franchise has almost nothing to lose at this point, so why not? I don't know if the Bills are in quite the Bengals are in quite the same position, but I don't mind that either. So just to recap, I had losses in the first and third rounds and wins in the second and fourth, but I had no outcome on the fifth. So I just ended up $14.22 up on the week, but we'll take that, baby. It's a win, small win, albeit. But Daps, you had a little bit different week. You had the Steelers side, or you had the underside of the 41-point line set by the Cardinals and Steelers. You came out good in that one. I think, again, Pickett injury goes a long way, but hey, I'm not taking it away from you. Good start to the week, followed by 2 quick L's real quick. Chiefs at Packers. You hit the under 42.5 was your bet, and it did not hit. So you lost out on that $20 bet. $30 bet. 49ers at Eagles. You had the Eagles +3. That one didn't work out. Niners had themselves a little bit of a game. We'll circle back to that. I'm going to finish through the rest of these results. Then we'll talk about that game, I think, for a sec. $40 bet. You had Dolphins at Commanders. Well done. We had this in the same spot. Dolphins at Commanders, 9.5-point spread. We both picked the Dolphins, and they covered that. And you wrapped it up with a $50 bet of Lions at Saints, 4-point spread. You had the Lions here to cover for, and they did by 1. Nail biter, but they pulled it off for you. I like that. Do you want to talk about that game at all, or do you want to go straight to this 49ers-Eagles matchup?
What was the other game?
Lions at Saints. It was just a close game. Hit the spread by 1.
The Lions were up. I think the Lions went up 21-0 in the first quarter. Saints put together a little rally. Derek Carr is extremely underwhelming.
And then gets hurt, right? He didn't finish the game, right?
No, he didn't finish the game, and they have Taysom Hill, and Jameis Winston isn't the best, but I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of like, if you're going to mix Taysom Hill in every other drive or however often and use him as this utility player, it's like, switch to Jameis Winston. What's he going to do? Throw picks? Like, Derek Carr's already throwing picks. Like, the reason that you don't go to Winston throws typically, like, historically, he throws 3 touchdowns, but he throws 3 picks. So if you can manage those interceptions by slotting Taysom Hill in on a couple drives, it's just interesting. Derek Carr's he's not the guy. He's not impressive. He threw a pick on like the 10-yard line. It was a horrible throw. Like, it wasn't even accountable for it in the post game. I'm kind of like over Derek Carr. I rooted for him, and after seeing him this season with the Saints, I'm kind of like, this guy thinks he's better than he is. He's not. He's not performing well. He's blaming everybody else, and he's got to take some responsibility.
I agree with you. Couldn't agree more. Derek Carr, jury was maybe still out if you wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I was kind of leaning that way after the whole Raiders stint, just could never be the guy to bring them over the top. Looks like more of the same, at least with the Saints, probably one step down at least from there. But I think the headliner of the week, at least in my eyes for sure, 49ers at Eagles. 49ers pulling off the huge win. I don't have the box score in front of me. Multi-score win over the Eagles. Everybody kind of thought this was like the preview of the NFC Championship game. It was the rematch of the last NFC Championship game. We got to see what Brock Purdy could do against the Eagles for the first time. And let me tell you, Daps, as the resident 49ers fan here on Overtime Operators, after the first quarter, I think the Niners had negative yardage. Obviously no points. And it looked really bad. We were down 6, I think, at that point. And I'm not going to lie. I don't want to say I started losing faith, but I started to get very nervous, right? I started thinking like, hey, maybe this is just a bad game. Like, oh no, like already going through that rumor or the excuses mill, I guess. And then all of a sudden they got it going, and the Niners just scored and scored and scored and scored, and they played good defense. Daps, as the more impartial host of this show who could speak to this kind of NFC duo, what do you take from this game?
I mean, I think that the first quarter was interesting. I think the Niners did an incredible job of holding the Eagles to those 2 field goals when they got into the zone, because they moved the ball pretty quickly. And it's a way different tempo of the game if it's 14-0 than 6-0, right? If they get 2 touchdowns instead
Absolutely.
of 2 field goals, the way you play is just different. I think that very impressive with the Niners win. Not going to take anything away from them. The power that the Niners have between Debo and Ayuk and Kittle and McCaffrey and Brock Purdy, by the way, now moving into the favorite for the MVP, which I'd like to argue that if Tyreek breaks 2,000 yards, I don't think you can give it to Purdy only because of all the weapons I just listed, right? Like, not to mention you got Christian McCaffrey and Purdy, like both top 5, top 6, top 7 MVP odds. And when you have 2 MVPs on one team, it's hard to give it to either one.
It's not
right?
just one guy. Right.
Right. It's also like when KD went to the Warriors, you're going, all right, well, KD and Steph aren't winning the MVP this year, right? Because how can you, right? So very impressive win by the Niners. I think that, and some of this will be biased because I played Deebo Samuel in a fantasy league. There was a blown call for sure on that first touchdown where Deebo ran up the middle. But I'm not just going to blame it on the blown call. The Eagles looked like they didn't want to tackle. And this went from that play to the rest of the game. A lot of plays where the last touchdown the Eagles scored, nobody wanted to tackle. Both of Deebo's touchdowns were like, I know Deebo's incredible, but like you didn't even try to tackle him.
I was in a live chat for that game on Bleacher Report, and after he scored, I mean, I don't chat that much, but after he scored, I said, just Deebo touchdowns just look different. I mean, he's dragging 3 guys into the end zone with him from like 6 yards out as a receiver. That's insane.
And by the way, he's a beast. So this is not to take anything away from
another
Deebo.
reason the MVP is hard to give to somebody else on the team.
Listen, Deebo is absolutely incredible. One of my favorite players to watch. And I love Deebo and Christian are like the inverses of one another, right? Like one's the receiver who can also play running back, and the other's the running back who can also play receiver, and they're arguably like some of the best at their positions and on the same team. Really, really cool, really versatile. Makes the Niners extremely scary. Like, I am not excited to play the Niners as any team in the playoffs. They've dismantled both the Eagles and the Cowboys. But again, I think that the NFL is about getting hot at the right time. Niners are definitely hot right now, but you got to be hot in 6 weeks, right? You got to be hot when the playoffs are starting. So they might ride this in. They're going to, I don't know what their schedule is like. I don't know if they have a difficult schedule or an easy schedule, but they might be the best team. They might be the team to beat. Mahomes does not look great at the moment. I don't think that really matters because like he can have a down week or 2 down weeks and he's Mahomes, right? But you see all these injuries happen. I saw an interesting Instagram post. Trevor Lawrence went down last week. Joe Burrow went down. Rodgers went down. There's Anthony Richardson went down. All of these AFC quarterbacks, I think like 6 or 7 who started the season are out. And they were saying, if Lamar Jackson or Tua goes down, Mahomes' path to the Super Bowl is relatively easy in the playoffs.
I mean, I'm not betting against them. I still got the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl, don't you?
Right. And then when you have to play him in the Super Bowl, guess what? Mahomes already beat the Niners. Guess what? Mahomes already beat the Eagles, right? So they could both of those teams could talk as much as they want. Nobody wants to play Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, right? You're gonna psych yourself up, but like you don't want to play Patrick Mahomes,
Right.
So
right. He's got a pretty good record in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, for sure. But the NFC playoffs are looking really, really cool because the Cowboys, maybe you don't want to hear this, but like they're looking good, man.
They look good. They look good. Yeah. And we can only play them the one time we get to play them, though. So we had to show early in the year when they didn't look as good. So,
but the Niners look strong too.
But like you said, it's about getting hot at the right time. If you had to pick, let's wrap this up with this. If you had to pick which team represents the NFC in the Super Bowl this year, not knowing exactly about the schedules going forward, just off your gut, knowing Philly has a little bit higher chance at the 1 seed, who are you going with if you had to bet today?
I'd 100% pick the Niners right now.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Philly. Okay. I like it.
No,
okay.
I don't even like, I think we talked about this last week. I don't like 3 of the Eagles' wins this year. I don't like the win against the Bills. I don't like the win against the Chiefs. And I don't like the win against the Cowboys. So they're going to play the Cowboys again. It's going to be time to show up. But also, this game was a disaster for them. Like
Yeah.
they did not look good at all. They had a chance to kind of put a couple drives together to at least be in it, right? By the way, I'm
For
also
sure.
upset. I had them in a teaser, 5-game teaser. Hit the first 4 bets. I had the Eagles plus 10. Imagine going
Plus
into that
10?
game having the Eagles plus 10 and they lose.
How do you even get a plus 10? That's nuts.
So
Man.
that's my weekend.
Well, some exciting games for sure. Let's move into our betting portion. We ran a little long there, so I'll try to run through mine pretty quick here. I'll only try to focus on maybe a couple. I'll run through mine. How about this? I think this will be quicker. I'll run through all 5 of mine real quick and then toss it to you to do the same. I have first in my $10 spot, I have Browns at Jags. I'm going to take the Browns to cover the 3-point spread here. They're 3-point favorites. The Jags here, I mean, I don't know Trevor Lawrence's exact status right now, but I don't think it matters to me that much whether he's out or he's playing and he's just kind of maybe rattled a little or physically kind of not 100%. The Browns defense is good. We've known this. It is known. And we've seen the Jags put up bad games. I've been a Jags supporter all season. This just feels like one of those types of games where I don't think the Jags have the veteran leadership, the kind of like experience to win the games that are going to be tough to win, especially against a good defense like the Browns. So that's my $10 bet. Texans at Jets is my $20 bet. I'm taking the Texans to cover the 4.5-point spread. They are the favorites, so I think this is going to be a decisive victory. The Jets, I don't know what the Jets are doing, man. It's just anarchy in the Jets QB room right now.
They just announced that Wilson's playing. He's starting.
Yeah, that's who I thought was going to start, but it's still, I mean, you didn't think he was the guy last week, so I don't know. I don't know what has changed. How can you expect Zach Wilson to even play as good as he can? And that's not that great to begin with. So I will say this would have been higher up in my bets, except for I saw the Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee interview all about Zach Wilson, basically. And he made me believe in the chip in the shoulder thing a little bit. So I'm like, we might actually see Zach come out and ball a little bit. Otherwise, this might have been up there in my $40 or $50 section. All right, moving on, $30 bet. I have Lions at Bears. This matchup, I am taking the Lions to cover their 3-point spread. So I'm 3 favorites right out of the gate. I don't know why this is so close. I know Justin Fields is back. I know that they can put up a lot of points. DJ Moore is an incredible athlete. I don't know why this is this close. The Lions are a much, much better team. I mean, they're separated by a multitude of like situations. Like they could take an injury, a big injury, and still be fine, I think, in this game. They were like, for instance, they looked pretty good without David Montgomery. So they can make do without key players. So I really like them here to cover a 3-point spread. No problem. I'm going to take my first underdog in my $40 spot. Eagles at Cowboys. The Eagles, I think this is just recency bias based off the game against the Niners. I do believe in the Eagles. I believe that they're the second best team in the NFC. The Cowboys are peaking at the right time, so I think this is going to be a close game. But if you're going to give me the Eagles and points, I probably, when push came to shove, was going to pick the Eagles anyway. They're going to try to get a get-right game here. So I have the Eagles plus 3.5 in the $40 spot and the $50 spot. Titans at Dolphins. I've done it 2 weeks in a row now. I'm not going to – their NBA Jams rules on fire now. They can't miss. Dolphins covering double-digit spreads like every single week. They're at home this week against the Titans. They got to cover a 13-point spread. That's less than 14. They're going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. I feel pretty good about it. They keep doing it. Also got the Hard Knocks bug. Been getting caught up on the Hard Knocks. I was already with the Dolphins, but I mean, damn, man. They're too good. That's how I see betting this week. Those are my 5 bets. Daps, on over to you. Tell us what you got.
In my $10 spot, I got the Packers minus 6.5 against the Giants in New York. I think the Packers have been playing really well, and I don't know what the Giants have been doing. So 7-point spread. They just beat the Chiefs by, I believe, 7, maybe more, or close to 7. So if you can beat Patrick Mahomes by 6.5, I think you could beat the Giants and Tommy DeVito. Dolphins, Titans over 46 in my $20 spot. Listen, the Dolphins scored 45 last week, right? So you need the Titans to score 1 point in your push. So we'll see what happens. I don't know who can stop the Dolphins at the moment on defense. I don't believe it's the Titans. In my $30 spot, I took the Saints minus 5. The Saints are playing. Let me just double check this again. The Saints. are playing, I believe. Oh, they're playing the Panthers. The Panthers stink. They can't move the ball. Bryce Young, I root for him, but he's just not there yet.
Next year, maybe.
Saints coming off a bad loss. Hopefully they get a win, even if Carr's not playing. They have enough to they can figure out a win with Jameis Winston against the Panthers and Taysom Hill. In my $40 spot, I had the Texans at -4. I know you said 4.5. I like the Texans to go into New York and beat up on my Jets. The Jets. I just don't know how they win a game. I can't play it out in my head how they win a game. Not even this game, any game. Bills, Chiefs over 48.5 in my $50 spot. I like the shootout. Chiefs coming off a loss. Bills need a win. Both teams are going to be super motivated to play well. At this current moment, as we speak, the Bills are the 10th best team in the AFC. Imagine saying that before the season, the 10th best team.
You would have been laughed off of whatever platform you said it on.
In the AFC. So they've got, now with that being said, the Browns are 7-5 at the 7 spot. So even if the Bills were to lose, they can still make the playoffs. But this is a big game for both. Chiefs are currently the third best team in the division. If the playoffs were to start today, the Chiefs would have to play the Colts round 1. So I don't think the Chiefs give. I mean, listen, no matter where the Chiefs are, whether they're in the 1, 2, or 3, if you're in the 2 or 3 spot right now, I would say the Dolphins, Ravens, and Chiefs are significantly better than every other team in the AFC. Right, they're on another tier. So if you're sitting in the 2 or the 3 spot, you have to play, as it stands right now, the Browns or the Colts. The Browns or the Colts. I'm not scared of either of those. And then even if you drop into the 4 spot and you're the Jaguars, you're playing the Steelers. So the bottom 3 teams in the AFC, to me, are punching bags for whoever. It's the Ravens or the Chiefs, or if it's the Dolphins, right? But now you talk about 2 really interesting, or actually we'll talk about 3 interesting fringe teams who are currently in the 8, 9, 10, which I believe completely changed the dynamic of the playoffs. Texans, CJ Stroud. 9 is the Broncos, Russell Wilson, and 10 is the Bills. So if the Texans, Broncos, and Bills replace the Browns, Colts, and Steelers, can that happen? Maybe that can't happen because you're going to need somebody out of the AFC North. But if 2 of those teams get replaced, and also it could happen because the Texans are a game behind the Jaguars. How long is Trevor Lawrence out? We don't know. But if they go on a little 3-game skid, Texans take over that 1 spot. And then you got Russell Wilson and Josh Allen heating up at the end of the year, and they take those last 2 spots. Now, as a Ravens fan or a Dolphins fan or as a Chiefs fan, you're going, I got to play Russell Wilson in the first round. I got to play Josh Allen in the first round. Like that's not a conversation you want to be having.
I think the Texans might be scarier than either of them, honestly. When they're playing great football, they're playing great football. I forgot they did lose Tank Dell though, so maybe next year. I don't know. They look like a scary team when they're firing on all cylinders. Love all the analysis there, Daps. Let me just make sure I got something right here. Packers, what was the spread you had there? 6.5?
6.5, yep.
6.5, okay. All right then. Oh, and what's the points line you had on Bills Chief? I know you have the over.
Over 48.5.
48.5. Yeah, I got a little rich for my blood, I think, just because the Chiefs have been playing better defense as well. So and the Bills always kind of had that as an identity too. So I don't know if this looks exactly like that one playoff game where there was touchdowns all over the place. But it could go that way, absolutely. So I just got scared off a little bit. I love the courage though, because if it hits the over, it could hit 20 points over still. All right, let's move on. We have one more new segment. We like to play games on this show. Daps, I have a new one for you here. Essentially, I'll explain the rules here. Essentially, I have taken football reference pages of players, all current players, I should say. And I've got 5 different questions for you. I'm going to show you the stats of a football player, and you tell me who it is. Should be pretty straightforward. I don't know how easy it'll be. Never set this up before. Might have made it way too easy. Might have made it way too hard. I don't know. I think you're going to get it, though. At least most of them. I tried to throw in at least a couple I thought were a little bit harder, but we'll get to that when we get to that. First one up. Here we go, Daps. You have mystery player number 1. I'll try to accommodate the audio only listeners. We've got a guy, or actually, Daps, I'll let you think through it. Here, you're on the clock. Why don't you try to tell the audio listeners what you're thinking?
I already know, but
okay, sure. Talk us through it.
So, for anybody who can't see the screen, it says mystery player number 1, and then we do have their team that they were on that is shown next to their stats. So just based on that alone, I was able to decipher that it's Brandin Cooks. But based on just their stats, there's no way I would have guessed that.
Sure.
So Brandin Cooks he started his career in New Orleans with Drew Brees, and then he went to play with Tom Brady for, I think, a full year. And then he ends up going to Sean McVay's system in LA, which was cool. And then he ends up in Houston for a couple of years. And now he had a slow start in Dallas, but he's had some pretty big games. Dak Prescott has not only CeeDee Lamb, but Brandin Cooks is a pretty nice, even at his age, second option. He's 9 years into the league, so he's probably pretty close to 30 years old. But listen, man, as a secondary option for Dak Prescott, I love Brandin Cooks.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people still try to say Michael Gallup is like a relevant member of the trio, right? Or I guess, yeah, they don't have Cedric Wilson Jr. anymore either. So I guess that would be their trio piece. I don't know if I'm in on the Gallup anymore. People try to say he was a 1 in the NFL. That's beside the point. You are right. Brandin Cooks is the answer here. Brandon with an I, probably the coolest Brandon with an I, well done. I thought that would be a nice one to warm you up. Hopefully there's someone here that challenge you, or maybe you'll play it up a little bit for the content, hashtag content. Moving on to mystery player number 2, Daps. The stage is yours, my friend.
Okay. Well, listen, this could definitely be harder. We've got receiving and rushing yards. It looks like there's a lot of targets and a lot of receptions, so we're looking at a receiver. Age 21, he's in Houston back in 2013. And then he goes to Arizona, and now he's on Tennessee. I'm going to have to go with the one and only DeAndre Hopkins. D-Hop in 2015 had 111 receptions. The following year has 78, 96, and then he goes 115, 104, 115 in consecutive years. The last 115 receptions was in Arizona with Kyler too. So that was a shame that Kyler and D-Hop didn't have more time, because it seemed like a match made in heaven, but Kyler got hurt. Cardinals stunk. As a I don't want to call myself a Chiefs fan, but I definitely root for the Chiefs. How you drop the ball so bad with your receiving core, and this guy, nobody wanted DeAndre Hopkins. Like that preseason, nobody wanted him. And I wouldn't say he's playing bad right now, right? Like he's had some pretty big games. But if he was with Patrick Mahomes, I mean, this guy would look like a top 5 receiver again, just because of the quarterback.
And maybe Mahomes isn't even the top quarterback of the league anymore, being that he's not the top MVP. But I mean, even think about the Eagles picking up like a Julio Jones. DeAndre Hopkins would have been the same type of role, like a elder statesman, and is playing much, much better than a guy like Julio. So even though maybe removed from his prime, still an effective player. And of course, mystery player number 2, you nailed it, Daps. DeAndre Hopkins was the answer. All right, crushed that one. 2 for 2. Moving on into the third round. Maybe you can sweep the whole thing. Let's see if you can get mystery player number 3. Here you are.
This could be a little bit tougher. This could definitely be a little bit tougher. Okay, so we have mystery player number 3, who has positions quarterback, receiver, quarterback, tight end. So I imagine I know who this is. Drafted in 2018, completing 88 passes in 2020, 78 in 21, 13 in 22. Along with, I want to just say he had 234 receiving yards in 2019. 229 receiving yards this year. I'm trying to see where rushing yards are at. Okay. Rushing yards, 346 rushing yards this year, 575 last year in the tight end position. That's pretty impressive. I'm going to have to guess that this is Taysom Hill. I do have him on a couple of fantasy teams. And I need him to play this week because my tight end's on bye. So
you are absolutely correct. Taysom Hill, I have him in at least one league as well. He's been added and dropped, I think, in another league. Still effective. It surprised me looking at this that, I mean, he's going to have a career high in receiving yards this year. It seems to be. I mean, if he gets 5 more yards, that stood out to me as like, oh, maybe I misremembered the earlier part of his career where I thought he was a pretty effective receiver when he, of course, wasn't doing too much throwing of the ball. But yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't see the. I would hope you wouldn't dial in on the position because it hasn't meant anything until now. But of course, you found that out. That's a huge clue in figuring this one out. But hopefully, I did this the right order. Hopefully, the next two are a little bit harder. Otherwise, Daps is going to walk to a 5-0 victory here. Let's kick it over to mystery player. Oh, go ahead.
I think if it had said like tight end in the position the whole time, it could have tripped me up a little. You know what I mean? But
yeah. Or I could have, taken position out manually, but I mean that would have to make it look nice would have taken a second longer. So I went for speed, and that probably made me able to do 5 rounds instead of 4. So moving on to mystery player number 4, Daps. Here you are.
Mystery player number 4, a number of completions, drafted in 2015, journeyman from Denver to the Jets, to New Orleans, to Chicago, back to the Jets. It looks like this man, I'm just looking for his passing yards, attempts 486 in 2016, 3,400 yards in 2016 he threw for with 18 touchdowns. Then he throws for 12 the following year, takes a year off. Then he throws 11 with New Orleans, 1 in Chicago, and 0 this year. There's only one person I can guess, and I'd have to go with Trevor Siemian.
This feels like the least confident you've been so far, so at least I've made it harder for sure. But you are correct. Of course, it's Trevor Siemian. It feels like I was trying to get sneaky at the end. Current players makes it tough because you know your stuff. I realized quickly if I went players all time, I could make this way too hard if I got crazy with it. This felt about as hard as I could get with a relevant player who's played this year, especially at the quarterback position. So well done sniffing that one out. I know you've also been following the Jets a little closer too, so maybe I could have elevated a little bit harder there, finding a Skylar Thompson or something. That could have been fun, huh?
I think this game is way harder when it's not current players for sure.
Oh, for sure. That's what I threw in a couple easy ones, and I was like, oh, how evil do I want to be with these last couple? All right. And I don't remember if I made the last one the hardest, but to go 5-0 here, mystery player number 5, Daps, you're on the clock.
Mystery player number 5 starts his career in Buffalo in 2013. Then he travels to San Fran, Chicago, Seattle, and then Cleveland. This is looking like somebody who's catching balls, the most 56 in 2017, which makes me wonder if he is a receiver or not. Rushing, no rushing yards. But there's some kick return stats over here. Maybe Casey's giving me a clue. Maybe Casey's giving me a small clue. Right off the bat, this is definitely
16 returns. 1 year with 16.
Yeah, so this is you've definitely got me stumped the most you've had me so far, Casey, because I don't know who it is right off the bat. So I'll really have to think about this one. Started his career in Buffalo in 2013. So it's funny because a lot of this stuff, like in my head, I go, okay, Prism 2013 hobby box. Who was in that, right? So like I'm using sports cards to figure out some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'll give you some hints if you want along the way.
Okay,
just tell me when you're ready for a hint.
Yeah, but current player on Cleveland. Number 3. So it's not Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was in Oakland to start, and then Dallas, and then Elijah Moore, who I think is number 8, another receiver on the Browns. I'm just trying to think about what receivers are on the Browns. Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper in Seattle last year, Chicago the year before that. He had 105 targets in San Francisco with 56 receptions, 962. Oh man, this is tough, man.
Yeah, I went into my Niners knowledge, picked a gross guy who's still technically a current player playing this year for sure. He is older. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if you're looking at the age column as much. Maybe a slight hint there. I know him from his San Francisco days. I liked him before that even, but he was definitely not well known. And if you want anything more substantial as a hint, feel free to let me know. I'll provide some stuff.
Does his last name start with a G?
It does.
I think it's Marquise Goodwin.
And you are correct. It is
Wow.
Marquise Goodwin. I was going to say that he was a multi-sport athlete, famous multi-sport athlete, an Olympic long jumper. But didn't know if you knew that about him. Probably better.
I had
at
no idea. I think I knew him more from San Francisco, and that's why I couldn't figure out the Buffalo. And
yeah,
I don't even think I knew he was on Cleveland this year. So
yeah, middle of his career. That when you were going down to Cleveland, I was like, Cleveland is really just how I got to be able to put him into a current players mix. Nobody knows him from his time in Cleveland, but he did have almost 1,000-yard season once upon a time with the Niners. I was also going to say, I was also going to try to get you to Tyrod Taylor, maybe from those packs, because he would have been the guy in the packs more than likely from the Bills. I would think. I don't know. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the Niners though over the years, they never really had that like true number one until Debo came
for a while.
And like Brandon Lloyd was a really cool receiver. So they always had these like cool receivers, but they were never.
Pierre Garçon was our number one receiver when Shanahan took over. And I agree with you. We never had like a real number one. I guess we had Anquan Bolden a bit before that. That's like maybe Michael Crabtree, but that's gross even. Like dipping back that far to the Kaepernick days. That's Vernon Davis was basically our wide receiver one for a while there.
I mean, it was Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, and then it was like fall off, right? Like,
yeah,
for receiver, I mean,
for number one for sure. I mean, we've always had depth. I feel like but not the standout guys since Jerry. Once you have Jerry as your top guy, no receiver wants to go and just be the second best all time.
It's all downhill from there, yeah. And not to mention, like Terrell Owens played with Jerry, so
he get the hell out of there. You gotta.
Yep.
All right, Dabs, that's all I have prepared for the show. Tell me what you think about this new game. Do you want to see more of this, more of the heat check that we normally play? Thought I'd mix it up a little bit here.
No, I love the mix up. I'm always going to be, I think heat check's one of my favorite games to play. I don't know if you and I don't know if you're allowed to make the game and play it. So we probably couldn't do that one this week.
We've done a one player version before on our other show. Right. So I can make it just so you go higher or lower on your own. But I thought this would be more fun if we were going to do a one player thing.
No, this
feels more in depth.
This was definitely cool, and I think that you got to kind of do those off-brand players with this, or you got to do non-current to make it more challenging. Because listen, if I had to go through this, if every player was like Marquise Goodwin on this list, I really would have had to use my brain there. You know what I mean?
I don't think it would have been the best content. You having to think too much every round. That's why I made it the way I did. Lull you into a false sense of security with those first three, and then hit you with a couple tougher shots. My justification for playing this game, because we try to keep it to making money in sports. One, obviously the cards, like you said, you're trying to like think back to other years. Oh, this guy had a big year in what was it? 2017. Wow. Okay. Who would have been big in 2017 packs? That's a great exercise. Also fantasy football. I think this kind of emphasizes, looking at Taysom Hill this year, the kind of production you can get at a tight end position, not the most obvious answer, but you see the collection of all his stats. You go, oh, he puts up some numbers. Marquise Goodwin at one point was a viable fantasy receiver who was not a household name. It illustrates there is value to be found all the way out there. You just got to go start looking through Football Reference randomly and start studying those pages, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, that's going to do it for our show today. Thank you for watching. Overtime Operators. I've been Casey. Follow me at Niners Fan Man on YouTube. Also follow Daps at Daps Sports. Check them out on TikTok Live doing their card breaks. Until next time, y'all. We'll see you later.